During Christmas dinner, I sat down at the table with cracked ribs. I couldn't even breathe deeply, so I sat there in pain. All the guests were silent. My son-in-law raised his glass and made a toast about my nasty fall down the cottage stairs, suggesting the old man learned his lesson about wandering in the dark. I smiled calmly, then lifted my shirt to reveal my brutal bruises. I said quietly that someone did learn a lesson, but it wasn't me. His face went white as the family watched in confusion and growing tension. Let me back up and tell you how this whole nightmare started. My name is Karl, and I'm 67 years old. I arrived at my daughter Amanda's house 3 days before Christmas, December 22nd to be exact. I live alone in Portland, Oregon, in the same modest two-bedroom house where my late wife Dorothy and I raised Amanda. 43 years old, corporate lawyer, tall and handsome, with perfect teeth and a firm handshake. They'd been married for 5 years. Id had reservations about him from the start. Something about the way he dominated conversations. Always had to be the smartest person in the room, but Amanda loved him. And I told myself I was just being an overprotective father. After all, what did I know about successful corporate types? I was just a high school teacher who spent 35 years trying to make teenagers care about the French Revolution. Their house was beautiful. I'll give Ethan that. Big, modern place in an upscale Seattle suburb, all marble countertops and stainless steel appliances, probably worth close to $2 million. Made my little Portland bungalow look like a garden shed. They had a cottage on the property too, a renovated guest house about 50 yards from the main house. That's where I'd be staying, Ethan insisted. Said it would give me privacy and quiet. The cottage was nice enough. 2 stories with a living area downstairs and a loft bedroom accessed by a steep wooden staircase. Those stairs were narrow, and the steps were high. I noticed that right away. I unpacked my small suitcase in the loft bedroom that first afternoon. Set Dorothy's photo on the nightstand like I always do when I travel. She's smiling in that picture, taken on our trip to the Oregon coast, 10 years before she got sick. I still talk to her sometimes, especially when I'm feeling uncertain. That evening, as I looked at her photo, I felt uncertain about a lot of things. Dinner that first night was tense. Amanda cooked a beautiful meal, roasted chicken with vegetables, but she barely ate. Ethan filled the silence with stories about his latest big case, some corporate merger worth hundreds of millions. He drank 3 glasses of expensive wine while Amanda sipped water. I watched them carefully, the way I used to watch students in my classroom when I knew something was wrong but couldn't quite put my finger on it. Around 10 p.m., I walked back to the cottage through the snow. The property was quiet, isolated. The main house lights glowed warm in the distance. Inside the cottage, I got ready for bed, climbed those steep stairs carefully, holding the railing. My knees aren't what they used to be. I settled into bed with a book. Some World War II history I'd been meaning to read. But I couldn't concentrate. Through the cottage walls, I heard raised voices from the main house. Couldn't make out words, just angry tones. Amanda and Ethan arguing. My stomach tightened. I told myself every couple argues. It's normal. But it didn't feel normal. The second night, December 23rd, I woke at 2 a.m. needing to use the bathroom. Getting old means getting up in the middle of the night. Just one of life's many indignities. I swung my legs out of bed, stood up slowly in the darkness. Didn't want to turn on the light and ruin my night vision. Started down those steep stairs carefully, one hand on the railing, feeling for each step with my foot. I was about halfway down when I heard the cottage door open below. Before I could call out, before I could ask who was there, I heard quick footsteps rushing up the stairs toward me. Fast, heavy footsteps. Then suddenly 2 large hands slammed into my chest with tremendous force. The push was so violent, so deliberate, that I had no chance to catch myself. I flew backward, completely airborne for a horrible moment, then crashed down onto the wooden stairs. The pain was immediate and catastrophic. My ribs hit the edge of a step and I felt something crack inside my chest. Then I tumbled further, hitting 2 more steps before landing hard on the small landing halfway down. I couldn't breathe, couldn't cry out, just lay there gasping like a fish on a dock, stars exploding in my vision. Through the pain and darkness, I heard those quick footsteps retreating back down the stairs, heard the cottage door open and close softly, then silence except for my own desperate attempts to breathe. I don't know how long I lay there. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been 30. Time does strange things when you're in agony. Eventually, I managed to roll onto my side. Every movement sent lightning bolts through my chest. I knew I'd broken ribs, maybe punctured a lung. Needed help. My phone was upstairs on the nightstand. Might as well have been on the moon, but I had to get to it. I crawled, 67 years old, retired teacher, crawling upstairs in the middle of the night with broken ribs. It took forever. Each step was a mountain, but I made it. Grabbed my phone, with shaking hands, called Amanda. She answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. I could barely speak, could only gasp out that I'd fallen, that I needed help. She screamed. I heard Ethan's voice in the background asking what was wrong. Then Amanda was saying they were coming right away. Hang on, Dad. Hang on. They found me about 10 minutes later. Amanda burst into the cottage first, still in her pajamas. Saw me crumpled at the top of the stairs and screamed again. Ethan appeared right behind her, also in pajamas, his face a mask of shock and concern. They helped me down the stairs, which was excruciating, got me onto the cottage couch. Amanda wanted to call 911 immediately, but something in my gut told me not to. I couldn't explain why in that moment, not with the pain and confusion, but every instinct I had said not to go to a hospital yet. I told them I just needed rest, that I didn't want to ruin Christmas, that it'd be fine. Ethan agreed surprisingly quickly. Said if I felt okay with it, we could just monitor the situation. Maybe get me checked out after the holidays, Amanda protested. Said I needed x-rays, proper medical care, but Ethan kept saying, if Dad says he's fine, we should respect his wishes. That's when I knew something was very, very wrong. I watched Ethan's face carefully as they discussed my injuries. Noticed how he seemed almost relieved when I said no hospital. Noticed how his eyes kept darting to me, calculating, assessing, and I realized with cold certainty that the person who pushed me down those stairs was standing right there in the cottage. It was Ethan. Had to be. No one else had access to the property. No one else would have any reason to hurt me. But why? That was the question that kept my mind racing even through the pain. Why would my son-in-law try to kill me? Amanda insisted on staying with me in the cottage until dawn. She made me tea, helped me get comfortable, fussed over me like I used to fuss over her when she was a sick little girl. Ethan left after about an hour. Said he needed to get some sleep, had things to do in the morning. As he walked out, he looked back at me. Our eyes met for just a second. I saw something cold and hard in his gaze before he turned away. I didn't sleep the rest of that night, just lay there in agony, physically and mentally, trying to piece together what was happening. Amanda dozed in the chair next to the couch, exhausted. I studied her face in the dim light. My little girl. She looked so tired, so worn down. Something had been hurting her long before I arrived. I could see it now clearly. When morning came, Amanda made breakfast. I asked her to bring me my pain medication from my car, some ibuprofen I kept in my travel bag. She started to go, but Ethan appeared in the doorway. He offered to get it for me. I insisted Amanda do it. Needed a moment alone with my son-in-law. Needed to see his reaction without Amanda there as a buffer. Once Amanda left, the air in the cottage changed. Became heavy, charged. Ethan sat down across from me, studied me with those cold eyes. He asked how I really fell. His tone was casual, conversational. But underneath I heard something else. I stuck to my story, said I must have gotten dizzy, lost my footing in the dark. Ethan nodded slowly, said I should be more careful at my age. Older people fall all the time, he said. Tragic accidents happen. Then, he mentioned something that made my blood run cold. Said the cottage had excellent life insurance coverage as part of their property policy. Brought it up casually, like he was discussing the weather. Said it was important to have good insurance. You never know when accidents might occur, especially with elderly guests. He smiled when he said it. Not a warm smile. A shark smile. Then he stood up and left. I watched through the window as he walked across the snowy yard toward the main house. Halfway there, he stopped, pulled out his phone, made a call. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I saw his agitated gestures, the tension in his shoulders. Then he turned and looked directly at the cottage window. Directly at me. Our eyes locked for 3 long seconds. His expression was pure ice. No pretense of warmth or concern. Just cold calculation. Then he turned and walked away. That's when I knew with absolute certainty that Ethan had tried to kill me, and that he knew I suspected him. The question now was what he would do next, and what I could do to stop him. Amanda returned with my medication and my laptop. Id asked for the computer, told her I wanted to keep myself occupied during recovery, maybe do some online shopping for last-minute gifts. The real reason was that I needed to do research, needed to understand what was happening. But first, I needed to talk to my daughter. I waited until she sat down next to the couch, until I could see her face clearly in the morning light streaming through the cottage windows. Then I asked her gently how her marriage really was, how things were really going with Ethan. The question broke something inside her. Amanda's composure, the false brightness she'd been maintaining, it all crumbled instantly. She started crying. Not quiet tears, but deep, wrenching sobs. I reached for her hand despite the pain in my ribs, held it while she fell apart. When she could finally speak, the story came pouring out. 3 months ago, Amanda had been reviewing some financial documents for their annual tax preparation. She'd noticed some irregularities in her trust fund statements. The trust fund was money her mother, Dorothy, had left for her, $250,000, carefully saved over years, meant to give Amanda security and independence. Amanda had given Ethan power of attorney over the account 2 years ago when they combined their finances. It was supposed to be a gesture of trust, of partnership, but when Amanda looked closer at the statements, she realized the money was disappearing, large transfers to accounts she didn't recognize. When she confronted Ethan about it 6 weeks ago, Head denied everything at first. Then, when she pressed, when she showed him the evidence, his whole demeanor changed. He turned cold, told her she couldn't prove anything, that the transfers were legitimate investments she was too financially naive to understand. Then, he threatened her, said if she pursued this, if she made accusations, he would destroy her career. He had connections, he said. Powerful people who owed him favors. He could spread rumors about her professional competence, her mental stability, could make sure she never worked in marketing again. Amanda was terrified. She felt trapped, alone, didn't know who to turn to or what to do. She hadn't told me any of this because she was ashamed. Ashamed that she'd been foolish enough to trust Ethan completely, to give him access to her mother's legacy. Felt like she'd betrayed Dorothy's memory. I squeezed her hand tighter, told her that her mother would be proud of her for being strong enough to recognize the truth, even when it hurt. Told her we would fix this together. Then I asked if she had documentation, proof of what Ethan had done. She nodded, said she'd secretly made copies of bank statements, emails, transfer records, hidden them in her office at work where Ethan couldn't find them. Smart girl, I thought. She'd inherited her mother's intelligence and foresight. I asked Amanda to do something for me. Asked her to bring me the property insurance documents. I needed to see them. She looked confused, but agreed. That afternoon, while Ethan was supposedly at his law office dealing with some urgent client matter, Amanda retrieved the insurance paperwork from their home office. I studied those documents carefully, put on my reading glasses, went through every page of fine print, and there it was, buried in the supplementary coverage section. A $2 million accidental death policy, added to their property insurance just 8 months ago. The beneficiary was listed as Ethan exclusively, not joint with Amanda, and the policy specifically covered guest accidents on the property. My hands shook as I read the details. The policy paid out for accidental deaths of visitors, with enhanced coverage for elderly guests due to higher risk factors. It was brilliantly done, completely legal. Nothing that would raise red flags with an insurance company. Just a responsible homeowner protecting himself against liability. But I saw it for what it really was, a murder-for-hire policy where Ethan was both the killer and the beneficiary. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. Ethan had stolen Amanda's trust fund, $250,000. That was a serious crime. But maybe Head thought he could cover it up, replace the money somehow. But then Amanda had discovered the theft, confronted him. Now he was in a corner. Desperate. He needed a big score to either replace the stolen money or to disappear with enough cash to start over somewhere else. That's where I came in. The perfect victim. Elderly, living alone, visiting for the holidays. A fatal accident would be completely believable. Old man, unfamiliar steep stairs, tragic fall. $2 million would solve all of Ethan's problems. He could either use it to cover up the trust fund theft or flee the country with Amanda none the wiser about the insurance payout until it was too late. Id survived his first attempt, which must have thrown off his plans. Now he had to decide whether to try again or cut his losses. Based on that flight receipt I found later, I knew what he'd chosen. That evening, Amanda invited me to have dinner at the main house instead of the cottage. Said it'd be more comfortable there, could rest on their big couch. I agreed. Needed to move around anyway to keep my ribs from getting stiff. As I walked slowly through the snow toward the house, using a cane Amanda had found for me, I heard a vehicle start, turned and saw Ethan pulling out of the driveway in his black luxury sedan. He stared at me through the windshield as he passed. No expression, just staring. Then he drove away. Amanda said he had a last-minute business meeting, would be back late. I nodded, but my instincts were screaming. After dinner, I made an excuse about needing something from the cottage. Went back over there alone, moving carefully. Started looking through the small trash can in the cottage bathroom, found a torn envelope, partially burned. Pulled it out carefully. Inside was a printed receipt for a one-way flight to the Cayman Islands. Departing December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. 1 passenger. Ethan Cooper. Cost $4,300. I stood there in the cottage bathroom, holding that receipt, and felt the final piece click into place. Ethan was planning to make one more attempt on my life. Kill me, stage it as an accident, collect the $2 million insurance payout, then flee to the Cayman Islands before anyone could investigate too closely. The Caymans had no extradition treaty with the United States for financial crimes. He'd be safe there, living on stolen and blood money. I had maybe 48 hours to stop him, and I needed proof that would hold up, proof that would protect Amanda and put Ethan away for good. Suspicions and a flight receipt weren't enough. I needed him to confess, needed to catch him in the act of trying to kill me again. I know what you're thinking. Why not just go to the police? Tell them everything? But what did I have? A fall down the stairs that looked accidental. A trust fund theft that Amanda would have to prove, which could take months and might expose her to Ethan's threatened retaliation. An insurance policy that was completely legal. A flight receipt that proved nothing criminal. Any decent lawyer, and Ethan was a very good lawyer, could explain all of it away. No, I needed concrete evidence. Needed Ethan to try again and this time get caught red-handed. It was risky, maybe even foolish, for a 67-year-old man with broken ribs to set himself up as bait. But I was the only one who could do it, and I'd be ready this time. I called my old friend Bernard. We'd taught together at the same high school for 20 years before Head switched careers and become a police detective. Head retired from the Portland Police Department 3 years ago, but Wed stayed close. Played chess every Thursday evening, complained about our arthritis and the price of coffee. Bernard was tough, smart, and loyal. If anyone could help me, it was him. I explained everything over the phone that night. Bernard was horrified but didn't waste time with questions or doubts. He believed me immediately, which meant more than I can say. He said he could drive up to Seattle that evening, would bring some equipment, and we'd figure this out together. I told him to park a few blocks away. Didn't want Ethan to see an unfamiliar car. That night, December 24th, Christmas Eve, I set my trap. But that's a story for the next part. My ribs were screaming, my fear was running high, and I was about to bet my life on the hope that a greedy man would take one more shot at an old teacher who refused to die quietly. Amanda had been staying close to me since my fall, barely letting me out of her sight. Sweet girl, worried about her old man. But I needed her to play a specific role in what came next. I asked her to insist that I stay in the main house Christmas Eve night. Tell Ethan I was too uncomfortable in the cottage, that my ribs hurt too much. She agreed immediately, relieved to have me closer where she could monitor me. But then I told her something that confused her. Told her to mention to Ethan, casually around midnight, that Id actually decided to go back to the cottage. That Id changed my mind, said I slept better in my own space despite the pain, that I was stubborn and set in my ways. She looked at me strangely, asked why I'd want to go back there. I just smiled and said, "Trust me, sweetheart." After everything we'd been through, she did. Bernard arrived at 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I met him 3 blocks away, walked there slowly in the cold night air. My ribs protested every step, but adrenaline was keeping me sharp. Bernard's old pickup truck was parked under a broken streetlight. He got out when he saw me, gave me a careful hug that didn't press on my ribs. Head brought a duffel bag full of equipment. Inside the truck, he showed me what he had: a sophisticated audio recording device, small enough to fit in a jacket pocket, 2 tiny wireless cameras with night vision capability, his service weapon from his police days, which he still had a license to carry, and his old detective's badge, though he reminded me he had no official authority anymore. We went over the plan 3 times. Bernard would help me set up the equipment in the cottage while Amanda kept Ethan occupied at the main house. We'd place one camera at the top of the cottage stairs, another at the bottom, both disguised and motion-activated. I'd keep the audio recorder in my jacket pocket, turned on. Then I'd go back to the main house for Christmas Eve dinner. Act normal. Around midnight, I'd announce I was returning to the cottage. Make it clear I'd be alone and vulnerable. If Ethan took the bait, if he came to finish what had started, I'd confront him, get him talking, get him to confess on tape. Bernard would be positioned outside in the trees, watching through the cottage windows, ready to intervene if things turned violent. It was dangerous, maybe crazy, but it was the only way to get evidence solid enough to put Ethan away and protect Amanda. We set everything up quickly and carefully. The cameras were remarkable, barely visible even when you knew where to look. Bernard positioned them perfectly, tested the feeds on his phone. The audio recorder was already running in my jacket pocket. By 10 p.m., we were ready. Bernard slipped out into the darkness, found a position behind some evergreen trees about 30 yards from the cottage. He had a clear view of the front door and the loft window. I walked back to the main house. Christmas Eve dinner was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Sitting at that beautiful table with Amanda and Ethan, pretending everything was fine. The table was set with expensive china, candles flickering, a perfect Christmas scene, but I was sitting across from a man who'd tried to murder me and was planning to try again. A man who'd stolen from my daughter and threatened her. Every time he smiled, every time he raised his wine glass, I wanted to reach across that table and strangle him, but I played my part, ate the honey-glazed ham Amanda had prepared, laughed at appropriate moments, shared stories about Christmases past, about when Amanda was little and believed in Santa, about Dorothy and how Shed loved decorating the house. I saw tears in Amanda's eyes when I talked about her mother, saw her reach under the table and squeeze my hand. She knew something was happening, even if she didn't know exactly what. Ethan seemed distracted all through dinner, kept checking his phone, barely touched his food. He was drinking heavily, refilling his wine glass again and again. I recognized the behavior. He was working up his courage, steeling himself for what he planned to do. Around 11:30 p.m., he excused himself, said he needed to make a work call, stepped outside onto the back patio despite the cold. I watched him through the window. He paced back and forth, phone to his ear, gesturing with his free hand. Couldn't hear what he was saying, but could see the tension in his body. When he came back inside, his face was flushed from the cold and the wine. His eyes had a strange glitter. Amanda suggested we all watch a Christmas movie, try to enjoy the evening. But I stood up slowly, wincing at the pain in my ribs, and announced I was going back to the cottage. Amanda protested exactly as we'd planned. I insisted. Said I just slept better in my own bed, that I was a stubborn old man. Thanked them for a lovely dinner. Ethan's reaction was subtle, but I caught it. His head snapped up when I mentioned going to the cottage. His eyes focused on me with sudden intensity. Then he relaxed his face, smiled, offered to walk me over there. I declined, said I could manage the short walk. As I headed to the door, I felt his stare burning into my back. The walk across the snowy yard to the cottage was the longest of my life. Every step took me closer to danger. The night was clear, stars bright overhead, Christmas lights twinkling on nearby houses, beautiful and deadly. I thought about Dorothy, about how Shed faced her death with such courage during her cancer battle. If she could do that, I could do this. Inside the cottage, I climbed those stairs slowly. Every step a reminder of my first fall. Got into the loft bed fully clothed, just took off my shoes. lay there in the darkness with the bedside lamp off. The audio recorder was running in my jacket on the chair. The cameras were recording. Bernard was outside in the freezing cold, watching and waiting. Midnight came and went. Then 12:30. I started to wonder if Ethan had suspected the trap, if he was too smart to fall for it. My ribs ached from lying still. The cottage was silent, except for the creaking of old wood settling. Then at 12:45, I heard it. The cottage door opening downstairs. Very slowly, very quietly. Someone trying not to be heard. I kept my breathing steady, shallow, pretending to sleep. Listened to footsteps on the stairs. Slow, deliberate footsteps, not rushing this time, taking time to do it right. The footsteps reached the loft, came closer to the bed. Through barely open eyes, I saw Ethan's silhouette against the window. He just stood there for a long moment, watching me. Watching to see if I was really asleep. Then he moved toward the bed. That's when I saw what he was carrying. A fireplace poker from the main house. Heavy wrought iron, 3 feet long. My heart hammered so hard I thought he must hear it. This wasn't going to be another push down the stairs. This was going to be a brutal murder, made to look like a home invasion, a robbery gone wrong. Head changed his plan because the first one failed. Now he was going to make absolutely sure I was dead. I realized in that moment that Id miscalculated. Thought Head try to push me again, that Bernard would have time to intervene. But if Ethan swung that poker at my head, it'd be dead before Bernard could even get inside. I had to act now. I sat up suddenly and turned on the bedside lamp. Ethan froze, poker raised, his face twisted with rage and desperation, and something that looked almost like relief, like he was glad the pretending was over. I kept my voice calm, steady, said, "It's over, Ethan." He laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. Over? Nothing's over, old man. This is just beginning. I told him I knew everything. About the stolen trust fund, the insurance policy, the flight to the Cayman Islands. Named every detail. His eyes flickered with surprise, then hardened into something cold and dead. "You're a foolish old fool," he said, voice thick with wine and hatred. "You should have died the first time. Would have been easier for everyone." The words came spilling out of him then, like he couldn't hold them back anymore. He told me how Amanda's trust fund was nothing compared to what he deserved. How Head built his career, his reputation, how he needed that money for important investments, how Amanda was too stupid to understand high-level finance. When Shed started asking questions, Head panicked. Realized he needed a big score to cover the missing funds and disappear before anyone dug too deep. "You were perfect," he said, almost admiringly. "Elderly father-in-law, all alone, visiting for the holidays, worth 2 million dead. All I had to do was push you down some stairs, collect the insurance, and vanish. Should have been simple." He described pushing me with satisfaction in his voice. Said Head felt my ribs crack under his hands. Enjoyed the sound of me tumbling down those stairs. His only regret was not pushing harder, not making sure I died right then. "But I can fix that mistake," he said, raising the poker higher. "One solid hit. They'll think someone broke in looking for Christmas presents. Tragic. Amanda will be devastated. But she'll get over it eventually. People always do." I stood up from the bed despite the screaming pain in my ribs. Looked him in the eye. Told him I wasn't a victim, wasn't weak, wasn't disposable. Told him my wife Dorothy had taught me that real strength was protecting the people you love. And I would protect Amanda from him with every breath in my body. Ethan lunged forward with the poker. I dodged to the side. Felt the weapon whistle past my head. Grabbed his wrist with both hands. Years of coaching high school baseball had kept my grip stronger than it looked. We struggled, crashing against the wall. The pain in my ribs was blinding, but I held on. Ethan was younger, stronger, had leverage. The poker swung toward my head. Then the cottage door burst open downstairs. Bernard's voice boomed up. "Police! Drop the weapon now!" Ethan jerked, looking toward the stairs. His grip loosened for just a second. I twisted his wrist hard, heard him gasp. The poker clattered to the floor. Bernard charged up the stairs, his service weapon drawn, pointing at Ethan. He shouted for Ethan to get on the ground, showed his retired detective badge. Said Seattle police were already on the way. Everything had been recorded. Ethan was finished. Ethan dropped to his knees, started babbling frantically about misunderstandings, how this was just a conversation. Karl wasn't hurt. Everything was fine. His voice had gone from cold and confident to desperate and pleading in seconds. Bernard told him to shut up and stay down, kept his weapon trained on Ethan while pulling out his phone to check that the 911 call had gone through. It had. Help was coming. Then Amanda appeared in the doorway. I hadn't expected her to be there. Thought she was safely in the main house. But she'd been listening from outside on the phone line Wed kept open. Heard every word Ethan said. Her face was pale, eyes wide with shock and horror and heartbreak. She looked at Ethan on the ground, then at me standing there with my shirt torn from our struggle. "You tried to kill my father," she said quietly. Not a question. A statement of fact. Ethan looked up at her, tears streaming down his face now, started begging. Said he loved her. Had lost his way. He was sorry. So sorry. Please forgive him. Please. He was crying like a child. It would have been pathetic if it wasn't so disgusting. Amanda turned away from him, wouldn't even look at him anymore. Came to me, helped me sit down on the bed, held my hand while we waited for the police. The Seattle Police Department arrived within 8 minutes. 2 patrol cars, lights flashing, followed shortly by detectives. Bernard handed over the recordings from the cameras and my audio device. They had everything. Ethan's confession, his attack with the poker, attempted murder, caught on camera, and audio. It was airtight. They arrested Ethan for attempted murder, fraud, theft, conspiracy. Read him his rights, while he continued crying and begging. Handcuffed him, led him down those stairs, and out to the patrol car. As they walked him past me, he looked at me one last time. The crying had stopped. His face was blank. Empty. I stared back at him, unflinching. "You were right about one thing," I said. "Someone did learn a lesson tonight. But it wasn't me." They put him in the back of the police car. I watched through the cottage window as the red and blue lights disappeared down the street, taking Ethan away. One detective stayed behind to take our statements. As he interviewed us, he mentioned something that made my blood run even colder than it already was. When they searched Ethan's car, they'd found a forged death certificate with my name on it. Karl Morrison, deceased. Cause of death listed as accidental fall. Date of death, December 25th, Christmas Day. Had already filled it out. Dated it for the next morning. Had planned to kill me on Christmas. Stage it as a tragic holiday accident. File the insurance claim immediately. And be on that flight to the Cayman Islands by the 27th. The detective said if I hadn't survived the first attack and figured out what was happening, if I hadn't set this trap, I would have been dead within hours. Ethan would have gotten away with it, collected $2 million, and vanished. Amanda would have spent the rest of her life grieving for her father and never knowing her husband was his murderer. I looked at Amanda sitting next to me on the cottage couch, saw the full horror of what almost happened reflected in her eyes. She was shaking. I put my arm around her, pulled her close despite my broken ribs, and just held her while she cried. The night Ethan was arrested, Amanda and I barely slept. We stayed in the main house while police processed the cottage as a crime scene. Bernard stayed with us, his presence a comfort. Around dawn on Christmas Day, the detectives finished their work and left, taking with them boxes of evidence. The cottage was sealed with yellow tape, not that I ever wanted to go back in there anyway. But something Bernard said that night stuck with me. The case against Ethan was strong, built on his recorded confession and the attack caught on camera. But building a comprehensive case would take time. The trust fund theft, the insurance fraud scheme, connecting all the pieces would require extensive investigation. Bernard, with his years of detective experience, knew how these things worked. He made some calls to contacts still working in Portland PD and in Seattle, asked them to dig deeper into Ethan's background. What they found over the next 48 hours was chilling. Ethan's pattern went back years. He specialized in marrying or befriending people with elderly relatives who had some money. Nothing huge, just middle-class folks with modest savings or life insurance. The kind of people no one would look too closely at when they died in apparent accidents. 2 years before marrying Amanda, Ethan had been engaged to a woman in California. Her elderly mother fell down the stairs at Ethan's beach house. Accidental death, the coroner ruled. $150,000 insurance payout that the daughter received, but then mysteriously transferred to an investment account. Ethan managed. The engagement ended 6 months later. The woman never saw her money again. Before that, Ethan had been involved with a widow in Texas. Her elderly father drowned in a bathtub at his retirement community during a family visit. Tragic accident. The life insurance went to the widow, who was by then married to Ethan. She divorced him a year later, claiming he'd cleaned out her accounts. Shed tried to press charges but had insufficient evidence. The pattern was clear once you knew to look for it. Ethan was a predator who targeted families with vulnerable elderly members. He'd get close, gain trust, arrange situations where accidents could happen, collect insurance or inheritance money, then move on. He was patient, careful, and until now, successful. The one case that haunted me most was from 3 years ago in Oregon, just an hour from where I lived. An elderly woman named Catherine fell from her second-story balcony while her daughter and the daughter's boyfriend were visiting. The boyfriend was Ethan. Catherine's death was ruled accidental. She'd been drinking wine, the railing was low, tragic fall, her daughter inherited $200,000. 3 months later, the money was gone, and so was Ethan. But now, with fresh eyes and new evidence, Portland police were reopening Catherine's case as a possible homicide. They were interviewing witnesses again, looking at forensics with modern techniques. If they could prove Ethan had murdered her, he wouldn't just face attempted murder charges for what he did to me. He'd face actual murder charges, potentially multiple counts if other cases could be reopened and proven. Learning this made me feel sick and strangely validated at the same time. Sick because innocent people had died. Validated because my instincts about Ethan had been right from the start. Something had always felt off about him. Now I knew why. Amanda took the news hard, realized she'd been married to a serial killer. Someone who'd been planning her father's murder from probably the moment he decided to visit for Christmas. The man Shed shared a bed with, built a life with, was a monster. It shattered something inside her. I watched my strong, capable daughter retreat into herself, become quiet and hollow-eyed. But I also watched her begin to fight back. She contacted a lawyer, started divorce proceedings immediately, gave the police full access to all financial records, helped them trace where her trust fund money had gone. Turned out Ethan had moved it through several offshore accounts, but it was still traceable. Most of it could be recovered. She also discovered that Ethan had taken out credit cards in her name, run up $70,000 in debt she knew nothing about, had forged her signature on loan documents. The financial abuse went deeper than just the trust fund. Had been systematically destroying her credit and stealing from her for over 2 years. The prosecutor's office was building a massive case, multiple counts of fraud, theft, attempted murder, conspiracy, forgery. With the evidence Wed provided and the financial trail Amanda helped uncover, they were confident of conviction. If the murder case from Oregon held up, Ethan would never see freedom again. But there was still the matter of facing him in court. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for early January. Amanda would have to testify. I would have to testify. We'd have to relive everything, face Ethan again. Amanda was terrified, didn't know if she had the strength. I told her what her mother used to say when times got hard. Dorothy would quote Eleanor Roosevelt. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the thing which you think you cannot do. Amanda cried when I repeated those words. Said she missed her mom so much. I said I did too. Every single day. But that Dorothy was still with us, in our strength and courage. In our refusal to be victims. The days between Christmas and New Year were strange and difficult. We stayed at Amanda's house, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Too many bad memories. Amanda started looking for a new place. Somewhere smaller. Somewhere that was just hers. I stayed with her through it all, despite my broken ribs that were healing slowly. Bernard visited several times, helped with practical matters, offered friendship and support. On New Year's Eve, just the three of us sat in Amanda's living room. No celebration, just quiet companionship. At midnight, we toasted with sparkling cider to survival, to justice, to new beginnings. It wasn't cheerful, but it was real. And real was all we had. The preliminary hearing in early January was as hard as I'd feared. Ethan appeared in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, looking thinner and older. Head aged years in just 2 weeks. His expensive lawyer argued that this was all a misunderstanding, that Ethan had been defending himself from me, that the recording was taken out of context. It was nonsense, and everyone knew it. Amanda testified about the trust fund theft and the threats Ethan had made. Her voice shook, but she got through it. I testified about both attacks, about the insurance policy, about the forged death certificate. Spoke clearly and firmly, looked directly at Ethan the whole time. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge ruled there was more than sufficient evidence to proceed to trial, set the trial date for March, denied bail, ruling Ethan was a flight risk given the plane ticket to the Cayman Islands and the evidence of financial fraud. Ethan would stay in jail until trial, his lawyer protested. The judge was unmoved. As they led Ethan out of the courtroom, he finally looked at me. Whatever I expected to see, remorse or anger or fear, wasn't there. His eyes were empty, like he'd gone somewhere inside himself where nothing could touch him. It was unsettling in a way his rage had never been. Made me realize that the charming, successful lawyer Amanda had married had always been a shell. The real Ethan, the empty predator underneath, was what we saw now. But Wed stopped him. That's what mattered. He'd hurt people, killed at least one person, and probably more, but he wouldn't hurt anyone else ever again. And somehow, despite my broken ribs and Amanda's broken heart, despite everything Wed lost and everything Wed learned about evil wearing a handsome face, Wed survived. Wed fought back. Wed won. The trial itself, when it came in March, was almost anticlimactic. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings of Ethan's confession, the cameras showing him attacking me with the poker, the financial records proving theft and fraud, the forged death certificate. His lawyer tried various defenses, but none of them held up. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder in the first degree. Fraud. Theft. Conspiracy. Multiple counts of each. The Oregon murder case took longer to build, but by summer, they had enough. Charged Ethan with the murder of Catherine, the woman who'd fallen from her balcony 3 years ago. New forensic analysis showed bruising consistent with being pushed, not falling. Witnesses had been too scared to come forward before now testified that they'd seen Ethan arguing with Catherine shortly before her death. The web of evidence tightened. In September, Ethan was convicted of murder as well. The judge sentenced him to 25 years for the attempted murder of me, plus life without parole for Catherine's murder. The sentences would run consecutively. Ethan would die in prison. He was 43 years old. He'd be 68 before he even became eligible for parole on the attempted murder charge, and the life sentence meant he'd never be released. I was 67 when he tried to kill me. He'd be older than that before he saw freedom again, if he ever did. There was a grim poetry in that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that Christmas dinner. The one where everything came together. The one where I finally told the whole family what Ethan had done. It was December 26th, the day after Christmas. Amanda had called her extended family, asked them to come for a delayed Christmas dinner. She wanted me to explain everything to everyone at once. Didn't want to keep repeating the story. I'd agreed, though sitting at a dinner table with broken ribs wasn't high on my list of fun activities. The guests arrived around 2 p.m. There was Ethan's older brother, Marcus, 45 years old, a financial advisor from Boston, his wife Susan, quiet and observant, Amanda's cousin Rachel from her mother's side of the family, along with Rachel's husband Tom. Rachel was 35, taught elementary school, had always been close to Amanda growing up, and Bernard and his wife Helen, there as our friends and as witnesses to what had happened. Marcus was defensive from the moment he arrived. He knew his brother had been arrested, but claimed there must be some mistake. Ethan was a good man, successful, respectable. This was all a misunderstanding that would be cleared up. Susan stayed quiet, but I saw doubt in her eyes, like she'd wondered about Ethan for a long time but never said anything. Rachel was supportive of Amanda, but confused. Wanted to understand what had happened. Tom was a contractor, a straightforward guy who believed in right and wrong without much gray area in between. He looked at me with concern. Could see I was in pain. Amanda had cooked despite everything. Needed something to do with her hands, she said. The table was set beautifully. Turkey and all the trimmings, like a normal family Christmas. Except nothing about this was normal. I sat down at the head of the table slowly, every movement carefully calculated to minimize pain. My ribs were wrapped tightly, but breathing still hurt. Everyone watched me settle into the chair. The room went silent. That's when Marcus raised his glass, tried to lighten the mood. A toast to Karl, still tough as nails, even after that nasty fall down the cottage stairs. Guess the old man learned his lesson about wandering around in the dark. He meant well, didn't understand what he was saying, didn't know the full story yet. But his words hung in the air like acid. I saw Amanda flinch, saw Bernard's jaw tighten. I just smiled, a small, sad smile. Then I lifted my shirt carefully, pulled it up to show my torso. The bruises were spectacular. Purple and black across my ribs, yellow and green around the edges where they were starting to heal. Marks where Id hit the stairs, where Ethan's hands had pushed me, where Id landed on the cottage floor. Everyone at the table gasped. Susan covered her mouth. Rachel grabbed Amanda's hand. I lowered my shirt and looked at Marcus. "You're right," I said quietly. "Someone learned a lesson. It just wasn't me." Marcus' face went white. He set down his wine glass with a shaking hand. "I don't understand." So I told them everything from the beginning. How Eid arrived for Christmas and sensed something wrong. The first attack, being pushed down the stairs in the darkness. Amanda's revelation about the stolen trust fund. My discovery of the insurance policy and the flight to the Cayman Islands. The trap Wed set on Christmas Eve. Ethan's confession and second attack with the fireplace poker. His arrest and all the evidence Wed found. I spoke for almost 30 minutes straight. Nobody interrupted. Nobody moved. I laid out every detail as clearly as if I was teaching a history lesson, which in a way I was. A lesson about trust and betrayal, about evil hiding behind charm, about fighting back when everything inside you says to give up. When I finished, the silence was absolute. Then Marcus spoke, his voice broken. I knew Ethan had money problems. Had asked me for loans over the past year, said his investments weren't paying off, but I never imagined he could, that he would. He couldn't finish. Just sat there, with tears running down his face. Susan spoke next, her quiet voice suddenly strong. I always felt something was off about him. The way he talked about people, like they were things to be used. But he was charming and successful, and I told myself I was being judgmental. She looked at Amanda. I'm so sorry I never said anything. Rachel was crying, holding Amanda. You went through all this alone. Why didn't you call me? I would have helped. Amanda's voice was small. I was ashamed, felt stupid for trusting him, for not seeing what he was. Tom spoke up, his contractor's hands clasped together on the table. Evil is good at hiding. That's what makes it evil. You're not stupid for being fooled by someone who spent years perfecting his lies. Bernard added his perspective. In 30 years as a detective, I learned that most crimes succeed because good people stay silent. Karl's courage to act, even while injured and terrified, saved lives. Not just his own. We found evidence of other victims, other crimes. He's a hero. I shook my head at that. I'm not a hero. I'm just a father protecting his daughter. That's what parents do. But the family disagreed. They'd seen the bruises, heard the story, understood the risk I'd taken. Marcus apologized over and over for his brother, for not seeing the signs, for the toast Head made. I told him it wasn't his fault. Ethan had fooled everyone. That was his talent. We ate dinner, though nobody had much appetite. The conversation was subdued, processing trauma and shock, but there was also a sense of coming together, of family supporting family. Rachel promised to help Amanda find a new place to live. Tom offered to help with the move. Marcus said He'd testify against his brother if needed, that blood didn't excuse evil. Susan offered to be there for Amanda through the divorce proceedings. As the evening wound down and guests prepared to leave, each one hugged me carefully, mindful of my ribs, told me they were glad I was alive, Glad had been brave enough to fight back. Bernard and Helen stayed after the others left. Helped Amanda clean up. Later that night, just the three of us sitting in Amanda's living room, Bernard said something I've never forgotten. You know what the difference is between a victim and a survivor? A victim lets the trauma define them. A survivor refuses to be defined by what someone else did. You're both survivors. Amanda cried. I held her hand, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like hope. The aftermath of that dinner, of finally sharing the truth with the family, brought a strange kind of relief. Secrets are heavy. Carrying them alone is exhausting, but now the burden was shared, and that made it lighter somehow. The weeks following were a blur of legal proceedings, depositions, meetings with prosecutors. Amanda threw herself into helping build the case against Ethan, gathering every piece of evidence she could find. I think it helped her process what had happened, gave her a sense of control after feeling helpless for so long. The divorce was finalized quickly, given the circumstances. Ethan didn't contest it. Couldn't really. The house was sold to pay off the debts had accumulated in Amanda's name. After the sale, Amanda had enough left over to start fresh, plus the trust fund money that was recovered through the legal process. She found a small townhouse in a different Seattle neighborhood, somewhere with no memories of Ethan. I helped her move in February. My ribs had healed by then, though I still got twinges when the weather changed. We painted walls together, hung pictures, made the space feel like hers. One afternoon while we were assembling furniture, Amanda asked me a question. Dad, how did you know to trust your instincts? When you first got here and felt something was wrong, you could have ignored it. Most people would have. I thought about that while I turned a screwdriver, attaching a bookshelf bracket. Your mother taught me that. When she was going through cancer treatment, she knew before any of the doctors that something was wrong. Could feel it in her body. The doctors wanted to wait, do more tests. She insisted they act immediately. Turned out the cancer had spread faster than anyone expected. If Shed waited, if Shed ignored her instincts, she would have died months earlier. She taught me to listen to that quiet voice inside that knows things before your brain catches up. Amanda was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I felt it too. Knew something was wrong with Ethan. But I talked myself out of it. Thought I was being paranoid or insecure. That's what people like Ethan count on, I said. They're good at making you doubt yourself, making you think you're crazy for questioning them. It's part of their control. I won't make that mistake again, Amanda said firmly. From now on, I trust my gut. Good, I replied. That's the most important lesson you can learn. The trial in March was difficult but necessary. Watching Ethan try to defend himself, try to twist the narrative, was infuriating, but the evidence was too strong. The jury saw through his lies. When they read the guilty verdict, I felt Amanda's hand grip mine so tight it hurt. She was shaking, but when I looked at her face, she wasn't crying. She was angry, rightfully, powerfully angry. He took so much from us, she said as we left the courthouse that day. From me, from you, from his other victims. He stole time we can never get back. Yes, I agreed. But he didn't take everything. We're still here. We're still standing. He lost. That summer, after the Oregon murder conviction came through, Amanda made a decision. She quit her corporate marketing job. Said she didn't want to work in that world anymore. Didn't want to be around people like Ethan who valued money over humanity. Instead, she started teaching business ethics at a community college. The pay was less, but the work felt meaningful. She told her students her story, used it as a case study in recognizing financial abuse and manipulation. I was proud beyond words. She'd taken her trauma and transformed it into purpose. That's strength. That's survival. As for me, I went back to my little house in Portland. But things were different now. I'd faced death and beaten it. I'd protected my daughter and helped bring a killer to justice. I'd proven to myself that being 67 didn't mean being helpless or weak. Age is experience. Experience is wisdom. Wisdom is power. I started volunteering at a local senior center, teaching a class on recognizing elder abuse and financial scams. Turned out my experience as a history teacher transferred well to teaching practical life skills. The seniors who came to my classes had their own stories of being targeted, of family members who tried to take advantage. We shared our experiences, learned from each other, built a community of survivors. Bernard and I still played chess every Thursday evening, but now we also talked about the case, about what we'd learned, about how to help others avoid similar situations. Had been approached by a local news station to consult on a documentary about financial predators who target the elderly. He asked me to participate. I agreed. If sharing my story could save even one person from going through what I did, it was worth the discomfort of being on camera. The following Christmas, Amanda came to my house in Portland. Instead of me going to Seattle, we decorated my modest tree together, cooked a simple dinner, invited Bernard and Helen to join us. It was quiet, genuine, safe. Everything that Christmas at her house had pretended to be but wasn't. On Christmas Eve, sitting by the fireplace with mugs of hot chocolate, Amanda asked what I'd learned from everything we'd been through. I'd been thinking about that question for months. I learned that being old doesn't mean being helpless. People see gray hair and assume weakness. But they forget what we've survived to get these years. Every challenge we've overcome, every loss we've endured, every time we've gotten back up after being knocked down, that builds strength that young people don't have yet. What else? Amanda prompted. I learned that evil is real, and it often wears a charming mask, that we have to trust our instincts even when everyone else says we're wrong. That silence in the face of danger isn't peace. It's surrender. I paused, gathering my thoughts. And most importantly, I learned that protecting the people you love is worth any risk, any pain, any cost. That's not violence or vengeance. That's love. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. I learned something too. That asking for help isn't weakness. That my worth isn't determined by who I'm married to or how much money I have. That Mom's real legacy wasn't the trust fund. It was her strength. The same strength that lives in you, and I hope lives in me too. It does, I assured her. You're more like your mother than you know. Strong, brave, resilient. She'd be so proud of you. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire. Bernard and Helen had gone home, leaving just the two of us. My daughter and me, survivors, family. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the world in clean white. Inside, we were warm and safe. That night, standing at my window before bed, I thought about Dorothy. Wished she could see what Amanda had become, how she'd survived and thrived despite everything. Wished Dorothy could know that I'd protected our daughter the way she'd always trusted I would. I imagined I heard her voice, soft and loving. You did good, Karl. You did so good. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe it was something more. Either way, I felt at peace. The scars were there, physical and emotional, but they were badges of survival, not shame. I'd faced evil, and won not through violence but through courage, love, and refusing to be a victim. That's the lesson I carried forward. That's what I taught in my classes, what I shared with anyone who would listen. You're never too old to fight back. You're never too weak to protect what matters, and surviving isn't just about staying alive. It's about staying yourself, staying strong, refusing to let trauma define you. I was 67 when Ethan tried to kill me. Now I'm 69, and I've never felt more alive. Every morning I wake up in my modest house, make my coffee, look at Dorothy's picture, and feel grateful. Grateful for another day, another chance to matter, another opportunity to help someone who needs it. Because that's what we're here for, isn't it? To protect each other, support each other, love each other. Ethan forgot that. Thought people were just resources to be exploited. But he was wrong. People are so much more. They're resilient, strong, capable of incredible things when pushed. He pushed me. Literally and figuratively. And I pushed back. We all did. Amanda, Bernard, even the family members who had the courage to testify against someone they'd once trusted. We all fought back. And we won. That's not just my story. It's a story about all of us. About human resilience and the power of refusing to be victims. It's about the strength that comes with age, the wisdom that comes with experience, the courage that comes from having already survived so much. So when someone tells you you're just an old man or an old woman, that you're past your prime, that you should just stay quiet and not make waves, remember this story. Remember that age is strength, not weakness. That you've earned every gray hair and every wrinkle by surviving, by overcoming, by refusing to quit. Remember that you matter, that your life has value, that you have the right to protect yourself and the people you love. And remember that fighting back doesn't make you violent or mean. Sometimes it makes you loving, because protecting others is the highest form of love. Ethan learned his lesson that Christmas. He learned that old men can still be dangerous when protecting their daughters, that charm and manipulation only work until someone sees through them, that there are still people in this world who will stand up and fight back, no matter the cost. But more importantly, I learned my lesson. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting despite it. That love is worth fighting for, even when it hurts. That family, real family built on trust and support, is everything. And I learned that Christmas miracles do happen. Not the supernatural kind, but the human kind. The miracle of surviving. The miracle of justice. The miracle of love, strong enough to face down evil and win. 3 years have passed since that terrible Christmas when Ethan tried to kill me. 3 years of healing, growing, and learning to live with what happened. The physical scars faded quickly. My ribs healed, the bruises disappeared, the pain became a memory. But the emotional scars took longer. For both Amanda and me, we both had nightmares at first. I'd wake up gasping, feeling phantom hands pushing me backward, hearing the crack of my ribs hitting those stairs. Amanda would call me at 3 a.m, unable to sleep, afraid every shadow was Ethan somehow escaped from prison. We got through it together, with therapy and time and the solid knowledge that he was locked away and couldn't hurt us anymore. Ethan is in the Oregon State Penitentiary now, serving his life sentence. I heard through the legal system that he's tried appealing his conviction twice. Both appeals were denied. Hell, die in prison. That knowledge should satisfy me, but mostly, it just makes me sad. Sad for the lives he destroyed, for the potential he wasted, for the choice he made to become a monster instead of a man. His brother Marcus visits him occasionally, though I don't know why. Susan divorced Marcus over it. Couldn't stand being connected to that family anymore. Can't say I blame her. Some sins are too big to overlook, even for family. But this story isn't really about Ethan. It's about what came after, about how Amanda and I rebuilt our lives from the wreckage he left behind. Amanda continued teaching business ethics at the community college. She's become something of a local expert on financial abuse and elder fraud, gets invited to speak at conferences, writes articles for legal journals, consults with law enforcement on fraud cases. She's turned her worst experience into her life's work. I'm prouder of her than I can possibly express. She started dating again about a year ago, very slowly, very carefully. A man named David, a social worker she met through her advocacy work, has patient, kind, humble, everything Ethan pretended to be but never was. I've met him several times. He looks me in the eye when we talk, asks genuine questions, treats Amanda with respect. That's all I can ask for. As for me, my volunteer work at the senior center expanded. I'm now on the board of directors for a statewide organization that fights elder abuse. We provide resources, education, legal support for seniors who are being exploited. My little history teacher pension goes a lot further when it's funding something meaningful. I also wrote a book. Never thought I'd be an author at my age, but turns out I had a story people wanted to hear. It's called The Old Man Who Fought Back, One Father's Battle Against Financial Predators. Not the most creative title, but it's accurate. The book details everything that happened, along with practical advice on recognizing and preventing elder abuse. It's being used as a textbook in some criminal justice programs now. That still amazes me. Bernard and Helen are still my closest friends. We spend every holiday together now. A chosen family bound by shared trauma and genuine affection. Bernard jokes that I made his retirement a lot more exciting than had planned. I tell him he saved my life. Both things are true. This Christmas, the 4th since the attack, Amanda and David are coming to Portland. We're having a quiet celebration, just the 5 of us, including Bernard and Helen. No big house, no fancy dinners, no pretense, just people who genuinely care about each other. sharing a meal, and making memories. Last week, Amanda called me with news. She and David are engaged. He proposed on a hiking trail overlooking the Columbia River Gorge, somewhere beautiful and meaningful to them both. She was crying when she told me, happy tears this time, said she never thought she'd trust anyone enough to get married again, but David had proven himself trustworthy over and over. Shed listened to her instincts, and they said yes. I want you to walk me down the aisle, Dad, she said. If you're up for it, if I'm up for it. Like I'd miss my daughter's wedding for anything in the world. I told her I'd be honored. We cried together over the phone, separated by 100 miles but connected by something deeper than distance. The wedding is planned for next spring. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. I've already bought a new suit. Dorothy would have loved this, I think. Would have loved seeing Amanda happy again. Loved knowing our daughter found someone worthy of her. I talk to Dorothy's picture every morning still, updating her on how our girl is doing. Maybe she can hear me. Maybe she can't. Either way, it makes me feel connected to her. Sometimes people ask me if I hate Ethan for what he did. The answer is complicated. I hate what he did. Absolutely. I hate the fear he caused, the trust he betrayed, the innocence he destroyed. But hating him as a person feels like giving him more space in my head than he deserves. As a sad, broken man who made evil choices, my energy is better spent on healing, helping, and building something good from the wreckage he left. That doesn't mean I've forgiven him. I'm not sure I ever will. Forgiveness is complicated when someone tried to murder you for insurance money. But I've let go of the anger, because carrying it was only hurting me. Ethan is in prison. Justice was served. My job now is to live well, love deeply, and help others avoid what I went through. The classes I teach at the senior center are always full now. Turns out lots of elderly people have stories of being targeted, manipulated, abused by people they trusted. We share our experiences, learn warning signs, empower each other to speak up and fight back. Some of my students have stopped financial abuse in their own families after taking my class, have found the courage to report theft, to press charges, to protect themselves. That matters more than any grade I ever gave in my teaching career. One of my students, a 72-year-old woman named Margaret, came to me after class a few months ago. She'd been living with her nephew who was slowly draining her bank account. After my class, she confronted him, got law enforcement involved, and moved into a senior living community where she's safe and independent. She hugged me with tears in her eyes and thanked me for giving her the courage to act. That's why I share my story, even though it's painful. Because courage is contagious. Because one person standing up can inspire others to do the same. Because silence protects abusers, and speaking out protects victims. I've also learned something unexpected through all this. I've learned that trauma can be transformative if you let it. Not in some trite everything happens for a reason way. What happened to me was evil and wrong and never should have occurred. But having survived it, having fought back and won, I'm different now. Stronger, wiser, more certain of what matters. I know now that age is not a weakness. Society treats older people as if we're fragile, helpless, past our usefulness, but we're not. We're experienced, resilient, tough in ways young people haven't had time to develop yet. We've survived decades of life's challenges. That's not weakness, that's proven strength. I know now that trusting your instincts is vital. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't talk yourself out of your own awareness. Don't let others gaslight you into doubting yourself. Your gut knows things your brain hasn't processed yet. Listen to it. I know now that asking for help is not weakness but wisdom. I couldn't have survived without Bernard, without Amanda, without the support of family and friends and strangers who became allies. We're not meant to face life's battles alone. Community is strength, and I know now that love is the most powerful force in the world. Not romantic love necessarily, though that matters too. But the love between parent and child, between friends, between people who choose to stand together against darkness. That love made me brave enough to set a trap that could have gotten me killed. That love made Amanda strong enough to rebuild her life. That love is what defeated Ethan in the end. So here's what I want you to take from my story. First, if you're elderly or if you love someone who is, Stay vigilant. Financial abuse of seniors is epidemic. 1 in 10 older Americans experiences abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Most of it comes from family members or trusted caregivers. Know the warning signs. Sudden changes in financial situations, isolation from friends and family, someone else controlling access to money or medical care, unexplained injuries, or fear of certain people. Second, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Ask questions. Demand answers. Don't let anyone make you feel foolish for being concerned. Better to be wrong and safe than right and silent. Third, report abuse. If you or someone you know is being abused, call your local adult protective services. Contact law enforcement. Reach out to organizations like the National Center on Elder Abuse. There are people who can help. You're not alone. Fourth, remember that you're stronger than you think. Age doesn't diminish your worth or your power. You've survived this long by being tough, smart, and resilient. Don't let anyone tell you you're helpless. You're not. And finally, love fiercely. Protect the people who matter to you. Stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. Fight back against injustice, cruelty, and exploitation. Your voice matters. Your actions matter. You matter. On Christmas morning this year, I'll wake up in my modest Portland house. I'll make coffee, look at Dorothy's picture, and feel grateful. Grateful for my life, my daughter, my friends, my purpose. Grateful that I survived, that I fought back, that I refused to be a victim. Then I'll drive to Amanda's new townhouse. Well, exchange simple gifts, nothing expensive, just tokens of affection. Well, cook breakfast together, laugh at old memories, share our hopes for the year ahead. David will be there, treating Amanda with the love and respect she deserves. Bernard and Helen will arrive around noon with pies and stories. Well, spend the day together, chosen family, survivors, warriors who fought darkness and won. And sometime during that day, probably while washing dishes or wrapping leftovers, Amanda will hug me. She'll say, "I love you, Dad. Thank you for fighting for me." And I'll hug her back carefully, mindful of how precious she is, how close I came to losing her, how grateful I am for every moment we have together. I'll say, "I love you too, sweetheart. I'll always fight for you." And I'll mean it with every fiber of my being, because that's what this story is really about. Not about the evil man who tried to destroy us, but about the love that saved us. About the courage that rose up when we needed it most. About the strength we found in each other and in ourselves. Ethan thought he could push an old man down some stairs and collect $2 million. He thought age meant weakness, that it'd be an easy target, that no one would question a tragic accident. He was wrong on all counts. Hess in prison now, will be for the rest of his life. I'm free, healthy, purposeful, loved. My daughter is thriving, building a life of meaning and joy. We survived. We healed. We won. So yes, someone learned a lesson that Christmas. But it wasn't me. I already knew what mattered. Family, courage, love, and the fierce determination to protect both. Ethan learned those lessons the hard way. Learned that old men can still be dangerous when you threaten their children. Learned that evil doesn't always win. Learned that there are still people in this world who will stand up and fight back, no matter the cost. I hope he thinks about that every day in his cell. I hope he understands that he didn't just fail to kill me. He failed to break me, failed to break Amanda, failed to break the love between a father and daughter. That love was stronger than his greed, his violence, his evil, and it always will be. That's my message to anyone listening. Whether you're young or old, strong or vulnerable, confident or scared, remember this. Love is stronger than hate. Courage is stronger than fear. Truth is stronger than lies. And you, yes you, are stronger than you know. Don't let anyone push you down, literally or metaphorically. Don't let anyone tell you you're too old, too weak, too past your prime to matter. You matter. Your life has value. Your strength is real. And if you need to fight back to protect yourself or someone you love, then fight. Fight with everything you have, because you're worth fighting for. I'm 69 years old now. My hair is gray. My knees ache on cold mornings. My reading glasses are never where I left them. By society's standards, I'm old, past my usefulness, ready to be put out to pasture. But I've never felt more alive, more purposeful, more powerful, because I know what I'm capable of. I've faced death and won. I've protected my daughter from a monster. I've turned my trauma into something that helps others. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's survival. That's victory. So this Christmas, when I sit down at the table with Amanda and David and Bernard and Helen, when we raise our glasses in a toast, you'll know exactly what we're celebrating. Not just the holiday, not just family, but survival, resilience, the unbreakable human spirit that refuses to quit, refuses to surrender, refuses to let evil win. Someone learned a lesson that terrible Christmas 3 years ago, and it wasn't me. Because I already knew that love is worth fighting for, that courage means acting despite fear, that protecting family is the highest calling. Those are lessons Dorothy taught me through her cancer battle, lessons Amanda reinforced by surviving her own nightmare, lessons I carry forward every single day. Ethan learned those lessons too late, learned that there are consequences for cruelty, learned that people will fight back, learned that evil doesn't pay in the end. Me? I learned that I'm exactly who I always was, a father who loves his daughter, a teacher who wants to help people learn, a man who believes in justice and courage, and the power of refusing to be a victim. Age hasn't changed that. If anything, it's made me more certain, more focused, more determined. So here's to the old men and women who refuse to quit, who fight back when threatened, who protect the people they love no matter what it costs, who turn their pain into purpose and their trauma into strength. We're not past our prime, we're in our power, and don't you ever forget it. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever had to fight back against someone who underestimated you because of your age? Have you ever had to protect someone you love from a person you trusted? How did you find the courage to stand up when everything in you wanted to hide? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own courage. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about the elderly people in your life and how to protect them, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story about survival, courage, and the unbreakable human spirit. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that age is strength, not weakness, that it's never too late to fight back, that love always, always wins in the end. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for caring about what happened to an old retired teacher from Portland and his daughter. Thank you for believing that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when pushed. Your time and attention mean more than you know. I wish you and your families a blessed holiday season. May you be surrounded by people who truly love you, not people who pretend to. May you have the courage to trust your instincts and the strength to act on them. May you never need to fight the battles I fought, but if you do, may you win them decisively. Most of all, may you know, truly know, that you matter, that your life has value, that you're never too old, never too weak, never too anything to stand up for what's right. Stay strong, stay vigilant, stay loved, and remember, someone learned a lesson that Christmas. Make sure it's never you.